Hey guys, this is going to be a video series on how to improve your side kicks while you're training at home. So the side kick is one of the main uh, basic kicks that we're going to be doing generally in striking. So the round kick, the front kick, and the side kick kind of all work together. But of the three, the side kick seems to give people the most trouble, so much so that they can do it for a long time and think they're doing it correctly and being doing it completely wrong. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over kind of what makes a side kick, and that way you'll be able to identify a properly thrown side kick when you watch someone else demonstrate one, and you'll be able to do the same for yourself. So there's a few key components that make something a side kick, whereas you can do the same thing with a round kick or a front kick. Okay, so basically the main things that are going to happen is the striking surface that we're using with the side kick is different than the other two main kicks. With the front kick, we're generally going to be hitting with the ball of the foot. The round kick, we're going to be hitting with the instep. But with the side kick, we're going to be hitting primarily with our heel. Another way that you can guarantee that someone's doing a side kick has to do with the line of power. So where the kick starts and where it ends is the best way to tell. And then the last way that we're going to be able to tell if someone's doing a proper side kick is if they're doing the proper action with their base foot. So if the base foot just stays in place, doesn't really rotate much at all, then that's very much like a front kick. If it rotates slightly, it's like a round kick, and then side kick's going to rotate a lot more. It's going to rotate like 90 degrees, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate those three things for you so that you can kind of identify whether someone's doing a proper side kick, okay? So that's going to be the foot position, the line of power, and the base foot, what the base foot is doing, okay? So I'm just going to back up a little bit so you guys can see. So the foot position for the side kick, when you have that leg up and you're throwing it, you want to slightly make your toes lower than your heel. And that's going to be like a really good way to make sure that you're hitting with your heel and not just your complete flat foot. So you're keeping your heel a little bit higher than your toes and you're pulling your toes back and out of the way. That way you have just your heel sticking out closest to the target, okay? Then the next thing you want to do is you want to look at the line of power. So when I throw a side kick, you want to make sure that you're throwing it in the right line. So the beginning position is going to be here. So that's going to be heel pretty much in line with the knee. So I don't want the heel tucked underneath my hips. A lot of people throw side kicks that way, and when you're just trying to score a point, that'll work. But when you actually need to hit someone with some power, it's not going to be very powerful. So you want to avoid letting the foot go underneath your hips like this. You want to have the heel, as best we can, we're going to line the heel up with the knee. So a lot of times, even if you say the foot under the knee, that's not even technically correct because someone might do their toes. This is not really the proper position. You want to, as best you can, keep your heel in line with your knee, okay? So that's the starting position. And what about the ending position of the side kick? With the ending position of the side kick is going to line up with our hip. So you want to always think about straight lines and be able to see them when you kick. So you can practice that by looking here and seeing if it lines up with your hip, okay? If you throw the kick and it kind of goes over here like that, that's not really lining up with my hip right here. It should come in and line straight up with my hip, okay? So you can use that when you're practicing. So far we've identified the proper foot position is that the toes are slightly lower than the heel and we're hitting with the heel. We've also identified that the line of power is that your leg raises up in front of you with the heel being right underneath the knee, right? And then the next thing we identified is that the end of the kick should be lined up with our hip, the heel lined up with our hip. So we're here from this angle, it's here. My chest should be out like this, but I'm not bent over here. I've got my hips straight, right? Then the last piece that we use to identify something as a side kick is the base foot, what the base foot is doing, okay? So I'm just going to show another angle here so we can see that. So we're here. So when I throw this side kick, my base foot is going to turn about 90 degrees. So I raise up, I throw the side kick, all right? So I'm up and I pivot. And I do that while I'm extending the kick. So I don't do it beforehand. That's going to take away from the power that I'm generating with that side kick. Part of what makes the side kick so great is that when you pivot that foot on the ground, it creates like a lot of power for that side kick, okay? So you can practice that a couple of ways. basically with all of your kicks, it's going to be much easier to turn that base foot if you lift your weight up off of your heels. If your weight is dropped in on the ground on your heels, you're not going to be able to rotate your foot. So what you have to do is think about it like you're going to come up on your toes. You're not going to come all the way up like this, that'd be a bad idea, but you're going to be up here, and as that leg comes up off the ground, it creates a little bit of lift to help your foot turn on the mat, okay? All right, guys, so in this next section, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes a powerful kick in general terms, okay? So, and this will apply to all of your kicks, like ways to improve your kicks. The best way to do it is to identify the things that make a kick more powerful, like a good kick. When you see someone throw a kick, you know it was good or not, all right? So the 3 things that we're going to try to look to make better through this course are going to be 1, balance, which is kind of obvious for most people when they think of kicking. Obviously, you're up on one foot, you need to have balance, right? So that's something that you want to be able to practice. You might think like in yoga, they practice something called the tree pose, where they stand like this, and they have their hands here where they put them up above their head, and they practice balancing for a long period of time, right? That will help a little bit with your kicks, but the difference being that when you do kicks, your leg is moving around, which is a different level of balance. It's not the same as just standing still. Standing still is great, but you're going to have to be able to hold balance while you're throwing kicks moving around. So it's a little bit different. So then what you want to do is we want to have drills that kind of address that. So one of the best ones being just standing on one leg, throwing the kick multiple times without setting your foot down. So you're just up here and you're throwing that kick without setting your foot down, practicing that balance. All right, and a really good way to start with that one is to start with, you throw 1 kick, then you do that on both sides, and then you do 2 kicks without setting your foot down. And you do 3, and so on until you get to really high numbers throwing proper kicks. If you can do that, that's going to build that balance like crazy, okay? The other thing that's getting worked on when you do that is leg strength. There's 2 kinds of leg strength that we're going to use. There's more of like the hamstring and quad strength that's going to create like a lot of force when you slam into the kick. But then there's the stabilizing muscles that are really important as well, which are going to be your hip flexors. So on the outside of your hip, the inside of your hip, the front, and your glutes as well. So all those things kind of are going to work together for those kicks. This is one that you really have to do a lot of work on to build strong kicks, because in your normal everyday life, you almost never use those muscles. You don't go around throwing your legs around in the air unless you've got some kind of weird lifestyle. But you don't do that on a regular basis. You're sitting in your chair, sitting in your car, sitting at the dining room table. You're not running around swinging your legs through the air, okay? So practicing that drill will not only work on your balance, but it will also work on your leg strength. Now, let's say the balance is a bit of a problem and you want to just focus on the leg strength a little bit, and you want to do a drill that's just for that, then you just grab the wall. So you do the exact same drill here, and you grab onto the wall, so you're not worried about balance. So when you do this drill, it's good to do it 2 different ways. One, you're going to do it where you're pumping kicks, like we just showed, where you're drawing the kicks out here, coming back, pumping them out there, kind of working those muscles that way. Then the other way you want to do it is more of an isometric method, where you're just going to hold it up in each position for 30 seconds. You're holding it up in the fold for 30 seconds here. You kick it out. You hold it for 30 seconds, trying to keep it in the perfect position, right? You hold it, you pull it back in, and then you set it down. You do that on both sides. So that one, again, is really good for strengthening the legs. Both are very, very important, okay? And then the next element that's going to be involved in kicks is posture. Now, do I mean that you always have to have perfect posture when you're throwing a kick? No, there's some kicks that's impossible to do. You need to bend down and grab the ground while you're throwing the kick. So in those scenarios, the proper posture is being down close to the ground. But working on that posture will overall make it a much better kick. A really good example is if you try to throw a side kick when someone's running in at you. It can be a very effective way to keep them away from you, but not if you don't have good posture. So if you were to throw a side kick and someone was coming in at you and you lean over, you've got a really good chance of just getting pushed over and falling, right? But if you have posture, so when you throw that kick, you're actually leaning into it a little bit like this, you're going to be much stronger, much harder to push away. The other good benefit of having good posture is that it's much easier to throw punches right after if you have good posture when you throw it. As opposed to throwing your kick, you come in, you kick, you lean way back, and then you come in and try to throw your hands, it's not going to be as effective, right? But if you're able to come in and throw your kick and have pretty good posture, it's going to be easier to follow up with your hands. So the best way, like I said, to work on posture, though, is to have someone come in at you while you're doing it, so you can kick them and keep them away, all right? Another good one is you can put your leg up on something like this. If you're more flexible, you can go up higher. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lean down to the ground and touch, and then come back up here, trying to crunch in a little bit, right? You're bringing it in like that. And you do that on both sides. You can do it to the back as well, which is good for back kicks, or just in general building more strength around that area and getting used to bringing yourself up into that good position. So you can reach down, touch the ground, and come up like that. And don't do a lot of sets, you just do a few, because it will work out your lower back, and you don't want to do too many, you'll be too sore. Okay, so that kind of covers the 3 things that are going to really improve our kicks, guys. You'll notice I didn't mention like flexibility. That's because that is mostly going to be a byproduct of those things. It's a good idea to go ahead and stretch after you've trained, not before, and get some more flexibility. That's great, but it's not going to be the main thing that determines having a good kick, because you could kick someone really, really hard to the stomach or the leg and it'd be just as good. So I would say don't focus overly on that unless you have really, really bad flexibility. If you have really bad flexibility, you're going to have to add in a little bit of extra stretching, but like I said, do it at the end, okay? Good, guys, this last section is just going to be about a couple of different drills or ideas that you can use to practice those things, right? We talked about what makes something a side kick so that you know whether you're doing it properly or not. We talked about ways to strengthen those elements of the kick. So maybe you don't have enough leg strength, so you need to work on that. Maybe you don't have enough posture. Maybe you work on your balance, right? So all those different things, you need to work on them. And we said maybe you want flexibility, do some stretching after. But there's a lot of other ways to do it. So really just getting more comfortable with throwing the kick, it goes a long way. So if you have a bag to hit, then throwing side kicks for a minute straight on each side and then taking a little break and do it again will really go a long way. And another way that really, really builds it up is sparring and having your emphasis be on your side kicks. So even though you probably will get scored on more if you're not like really good at your side kicks yet, you will get more points scored on you, but over the long run, you're going to get better at your side kicks. So being able to just control yourself and just throw those side kicks will make you way better at them over the long run. So using the bag just to throw kicks for a long time and trying different footworks. So you're sliding up, you're lunging, you're stepping through, all that stuff. Flying side kicks do help, even though they're like not that realistic, not something you're going to use when you fight. They really work for building that same kind of strength that you want to use to throw those side kicks, and it will get you a lot more of a cardiovascular workout from running around and jumping and kicking. So using those can also kind of help with that as well, okay? So then from there, guys, here's one more really good drill that I like to do because it kind of works the proper muscles for the side kick, and it will really work on those kind of things. So I'm going to be in kind of a side stance here, so a pretty big stance. I'm going to slide up and throw the side kick. So I slide up, launch the side kick in, and then I'll come back to that stance, and I'm going to pump a squat, right? I'm doing a pretty wide squat, but it kind of builds up that strength there. So then I come in, I kick again, I come back, and I squat, right? And then you obviously want to do it on both sides. You come to this side, you slide up, side kick, you come back, squat, right? And the whole time you're doing that kick, you're trying to keep your posture, keep your arms up,